there, Gina Hamby here with Help for Homeschoolers. Today, I'm going to address a question that I've gotten a lot lately. How can I be sure that my kids don't fall behind? Because honestly, Gina, I like the homeschool idea, but I kind of think that once this whole Corona thing is over, I probably might just send them back to public school. Well, in today's video, I'm going to address that. I'm going to talk about mistakes to avoid, and I'm going to talk about ways that you can ensure the best learning experience for your child. All right, hang tight. Here we go. Okay, let me address this. One of the problems that arises when we are saying, oh my gosh, my kid's gonna fall behind. Well, let's consider, what are they falling behind in? Because truly we're conditioned to compare and compete. But when you think about it, truly great minds often live far outside of the box. I bet you didn't know this, but there is some very impressively famous, successful people that were labeled with dyslexia, learning delays. A couple of them were called mentally challenged. I'm going to read some names to you. I did a little research. Some of them overcame it because their mom said, all right, enough. I'm going to take this child home and I'm going to school them at home. Others, it was just by sheer determination. So let me read you some of the names of the successful people. Albert Einstein, he particularly was labeled addled or mentally challenged. Thomas Edison, Mark Twain, Benjamin Franklin, Walt Disney, Steven Spielberg, Winston Churchill, Charles Schwab, Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, Mozart, Henry Ford, Tommy Hilfiger, Henry Winkler. Those are just some of the names of very famous and successful people that did not let learning delays hinder them. So let's not compare and let's not compete with one another. Everyone learns different. We do not want a homogenized mess of everybody turning out exactly the same. We want to focus on our kids' strengths. We don't want to say because they didn't learn to read yet that they're slow or delayed or learning challenged. They're just learning at a different pace and they have different strengths. Okay, so let's clear the air with that one. Okay, let's go over 4 common mistakes or mindset traps that people get into. Number 1, it's not about cramming your kids with facts so that they can pass the test and then promptly forget. I want you to think about maybe like your high school chemistry. Do you really remember that much unless you're a chemistry lover? Do you remember much else except a big chart on the wall, the periodic table of elements, and maybe some beakers and goggles and some funny sulfur smells? I don't. Another one, forced learning. A lot of people get hung up here, especially with reading. They force their child, oh my goodness, my kindergarten, my first grader, they're not able to read yet. Oh no. I want to tell you what studies have shown. That most children will learn to read between 8 and 10 years old. Some will learn much younger, 4 or 5. Some will be more like 12 or 13 years old. Everyone's different, but the average is 8 to 10 years old. Okay, but yet we force them to read by 5 or 6 years old, and that's not appropriate for their little brains, okay? If their brains are not yet ready, we should not be forcing them, because more studies have went on to show that a child, when they tested this group of children at the age of 12 and 13 years old, there was no difference in the child who learned how to read at 5 years old compared to the child that learned to read at 9 years old. There was no educational or psychological benefit from forcing the child to read, except it did cause stress. And it very likely could have taken away their love for learning and their creative spark to want to know things. Another thing that we can get in the trap of is over-programming, which stresses our children's minds. Now, let me explain this. So you have a full curriculum and it's full of lessons in your lesson plan, and then you have activities for them, and maybe they're in a chess club, or maybe they take piano lessons or guitar lessons, and then also they're in a sport, and maybe not right now with Corona and everything, but before, or maybe you're still trying to find ways to cram their little brains full without letting them have some time for creative rest, to explore, to look after what they love to learn about. If you're cramming them full, you're going to stifle their little brains. It's like asphyxiating their little brains when they are so full of information all the time. You've got to let them rest. Now the opposite, the last one, number 4, what you want to avoid, I'm not suggesting that you just let your kids just completely ditch the books, ditch the textbooks, sit in front of a screen of any kind, an iPad, a phone, a computer, a video game. I'm not saying that. Sitting in front of the television mindless, that's not what I'm talking about. And I'm going to address that next. So what can you do? What do you do when you don't want to just be strict in the textbooks and the workbooks, and you want to adopt a more relaxed, creative approach to learning? All right, here we go with practical solutions. And this is the key to students that are going to be successful, that will not be behind, that won't be slow, that you'll feel confident you have done a very good job as a homeschool mom. All right, the four areas I want you to focus on are the academics. So that is your schoolwork, that's reading together, that's doing your math workbook, that's learning about current events. And then number 2 is your work. It can be work outside of the home for your kids. Maybe they have a side job. Maybe they're raking leaves or lawn mowing, babysitting. It's also work at the home. So they are helping you with the housework, so you're not getting burnt out. That's a big thing. Chores every day for the kids. Number 3, I want you to let them have creative pursuits. So that means, what are they interested in? Do they like to knit or crochet if they're girls? Are they interested in sewing? Could you let them pursue that? For boys, are they interested in survival skills or tinkering with small engines, maybe an old broken lawnmower, or let them take apart your vacuum that broke and just see what the inner workings are like, and just kind of get their mind, their juices, their creativity flowing. And then how about number 4 is just free play. This is just time, nothing, no expectations. Go outside, shoot hoops, take a bike ride, take a walk, just make a fort, just free play. Just let their minds have time for rest. All right, so those are the 4 areas I want you to focus on. Now for your academics, something very important, and people will stop with their children once they learn how to read, they will stop reading to them. With my guys, I would read aloud to them, and that was just one part of our school day. Even though my son was 12, 13, 14 years old, it was a family time. They're sitting on the couch, they're snuggled up with a blanket, and I'm reading a classic book to them. Something a little bit above what they naturally would read. So this would be like Robinson Crusoe or Across 5 Aprils. Something that's a little bit above, but what you do through that, something they naturally might not read because it's above their comprehension or their level, I guess I should say, is that you're going to expand their vocabulary. They're going to get to imagine in their mind what you're talking about through the book. So don't stop reading to them ever. That's very important. That's so beneficial. And then also, I want you to give them a wide variety of experiences, a broad knowledge base, so that when we were reading about Little House on the Prairie, we had Amish friends, and we had went to their farm before we had our own farm, and the boys saw what it was like to see all the farm animals and the chores, and what did the horses look like up close, so that when I read Little House to them, they had like a base of knowledge. If you're reading the classic Across 5 Aprils about the Civil War time period, then you're going to take them to a Civil War battlefield and just let them have something in their mind to pin this new knowledge to. If you're reading Anne of Green Gables, Maybe you want to take them to where where they harvest clams and let them see it, or take them to the seashore, or take them berry picking. Just give them a wide variety of experiences. And I'll tell you a little trick. If you think you have to find a field trip group for that, no, because a lot of times in a field trip group, they're great for fun and socializing, but the kids can be worried more about what their friends are doing than what they're actually learning about. So family activities are probably one of the preferred ways for them to get that wide base of knowledge, the base variety of experiences. That is going to help you make sure that your child, their creative juices are flowing, that they are experiencing life, that they're building on knowledge. All of this is going to build and expand their knowledge base. It's not about the facts. The facts aren't what keep them smarter and advancing. It's building upon knowledge that they truly own through experience, reading, things that interest them, things that are enjoyable to learn about. Not all math is enjoyable, but you know what I mean from my other videos. Okay, to wrap it all up, you're not going to compare and compete. You're not going to worry about falling behind if you're exposing them to a lot of experience, if you're giving them things to think about, if you're taking them to the library, you're picking up library books, if you're reading aloud to them, if you're not squishing them and cramming them with facts. Now I want you to think back to all the famously successful people that I mentioned in the beginning of this video. They were labeled slow and delayed. They were labeled as falling behind, but they did not let those labels stop them. They had the inner fortitude and some family to stand behind them that said, no, you live out your full creativity, what you were created to do. You take heart in that. You look to those people. You be encouraged that no matter what people try to label, when you do homeschooling right, your child will be successful. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. If this was a blessing, share it with somebody you know that it could also help. Take care.